Welcome to another episode of the Chicks on the Right podcast. So excited. It's been too long since we have talked to our BFF, Dinesh D'Souza, who's got a new film out, The Dragon's Prophecy, all about the Jews, the Palestinians, the land that is fought over. Definitely add it to your must-watch list. In the meantime, Dinesh has been very vocal, much like we have, about this crazy rift that is currently taking place on the right between normal conservatives who have not lost sight of our conservative values and the insane groypers and the people like Tucker Carlson who are mainstreaming them. So Dinesh, to just kick off this conversation, we want to know if you've ever gotten the kind of vitriol in your career, like the kind that the groypers are currently dishing out. Because for us, it's a whole new level.
Nonstop. Yeah.
Nonstop, very abusive. The attitude appears to be that we can't possibly believe the things we do. We must be getting paid, or we must be, people have actually tried to ransack my background to find out if I'm a secret Jew. As one person puts it, and this is my favorite, I'm a Hindu. Hindu meets Jew. I'm a Hindu. I love this.
I love it. That's fantastic.
God. Yeah, this is, I could do a comedy called The Hindu. It'd probably be a pretty good movie. So but look, I want to say, I debated Fuentes, as you guys probably know. I've got a little bit of an up close look at some of these characters. I do want to say, I think there's something a little strange going on here. And here's what I mean. These guys, like Fuentes, will go, Team Hitler. They love this sort of, I'm a Nazi, and we are horrified appropriately, and we go, oh my God. But the more I look at it more closely, the more I realize Nick Fuentes isn't actually a Nazi. He isn't actually Team Hitler. And his followers know this. This is an inside joke between Nick and his followers. In other words, he's a Nazi poser. Nazism is his shtick. Now, you and I can't get that because it's hard for us to believe why somebody would be an aspiring Nazi. Like, why would you want to do that?
And it's not funny. Yeah.
Right. But it is not funny, but it is the ultimate middle finger. It's the ultimate FU. It is the ultimate rebel stance. And that is really what Nick is going for. I mean, the reason he's not a Nazi, he's the ultimate pansy. I mean, he's a complete beta male. He's got this high-pitched, whiny voice.
Yes.
So the idea that he would actually do any of the things that Hitler did, no way. Hitler took on the brown shirts and had the head of the brown shirts, this tough guy, executed. Nick basically puts on his little narrow tie and his navy blazer. He is doing a certain type of performance artistry. Now, is it malevolent? Yes. Is he an anti-Semite? Yes. But I also think that some of this rhetoric that causes the Ben Shapiro's of the world to hit the ceiling, we have to recognize that this is a game that he is playing with his followers who like this kind of a sick game. Many of them are basement dwellers. They're kind of nihilistic. They think that there's an establishment that runs both parties and that elites have put everybody at the top of the list and they are at the bottom of the list. So these are the fumes that give rise to this kind of performance politics.
So do you think
what end?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. What is the point?
Yeah, do you think that he is just some sort of an agent to sow discord and like chaos in the Republican Party? Do you think that's what his goal is? What do you think the goal is?
I think his goal is to use a certain type of dark energy, if I can put it that way. And Nick is talented in this, by the way. He knows how to skirt the edge, right? And essentially what he's doing is he's trying to burn it all down, which is what all nihilists try to do. Their idea is not that no one should be in charge, but what they want to do is they want to wreck the existing system, and they realize that to do that, it's not going to be done in an organized manner. It's ultimately, it's a kind of pyromania. You sort of politically try to set fire to everything, hoping that out of the ashes, your side will emerge stronger than it is now. And I think that's the game that Nick is playing. Tucker is playing a little bit of a different game than Nick. I think Tucker's game is he recognizes that you've got these basement dwellers, and even though they're not that large in number, this is a key thing to remember. These are people who have no life. In fact, they hate their life, and they will spend 8 hours, usually in the middle of the night, on X, blasting everybody, telling me to go back to India, attacking my son-in-law. They live for this kind of stuff, and because they basically never get off social media, their influence appears greatly magnified. But I think Tucker is trying to create his own, almost his own little army, if you will, private army, is little militia, social media militia of these guys to sort of terrorize the rest of us and beat the Republican Party into submission to Tucker's own ideology.
You talk about social media and and how these people are amplified because of social media and through social media. And I don't even think that Tucker votes Republican. I know Fuentes surely doesn't. Obviously, with all the stuff that you said, he doesn't. He's not a conservative. He's not a Republican. And we pay attention to all of this stuff, right? But what about Jane and Joe Q taxpayer? Do you think that they give half a crap about this Fuentes guy, or about Tucker for that matter, or Candace, or any of those people? What do you think?
I mean, I always laugh when I see people on social media go, the base of the Republican Party is really upset. That's not the base. The base of the Republican Party is the 45% of Americans who vote for any Republican candidate with an R after his or her name. Now, yes, Trump has to go from 45 to 51, and that means he's got to add some, blacks. He's got to add some Latinos in the Rio Grande Valley. He's got to find some independent voters, working class voters who are outside the traditional coalition. But even none of those people are the base. They are the additions to the base that get you to the finish line. So my concern is not so much that the ordinary Republican cares about any of this, but that the Democrats will be able to use this and put a millstone around our neck. I think the game that Tucker's playing is not whether he votes Republican. I don't think he cares about that. I think what he's trying to do is to cow JD Vance into submission. Tucker already has an in with Vance. His son works for Vance. He thinks Vance is in his back pocket. He thinks Vance owes him because Tucker put Vance into the Senate. So I think Tucker's given up on Trump, but he's betting that the future of the Republican Party belongs to him because he controls JD Vance. Now, I'm not saying he does control JD Vance. I think JD Vance is a really smart guy. I've had him on my podcast a couple of times. Obviously, JD Vance has an Indian wife and brown kids, so JD Vance is not going to go full groyper on us. But that being said, I think this is the game that Tucker is playing. It's a very malevolent game, and it has serious consequences. So we are right to be all in on this. But I also think we need to recognize that to some degree, every time a Mark Levin or Ben Shapiro comes in and talks about how much Israel is doing for the United States, it kind of plays into the hands of the Tuckers and Nick Fuentes who go, yeah, well, look, I mean, this is all Israel first. The three of us on this panel are quite emphatically America first. And I think it's important that we frame our arguments inside of that label.
I mean, that was actually going to be one of my questions for you, is specifically about JD Vance, because at his appearance at the OSU Turning Point event, for example, it did seem like some of the audience members were groyper infiltrators, right? The way that they were framing their questions. And then even to the extent that he was tactful and diplomatic in the way that he responded, it raised red flags for a lot of people about JD and whether he would be tough enough to really push back on that groyper phenomenon. Because you know him, and I mean, he's going to get a lot of pressure because of Tucker and because of now, Nick and being platformed by Tucker. Will he be able to push back?
I sense that this is what JD is wrestling with. I think JD knows that a lot of these young people have this kind of view that the American dream has eluded them. And they have the view that these elites in the deep state. I mean, remember, this is some of the stuff we've been telling them too, right? That you've got these sort of orchestrated powers hidden deep inside the bowels of the government. So the Pied Pipers like Tucker and Candace and so on have come into this story, and in a way they have added one sort of added element. And guess what? This whole entire system is being puppeteered by the elite of the elites, namely that's the Jews. So the Jews are the master key to understanding the police state, the deep state, the uniparty. So you can see why for a lot of young people they're like, oh wow, well this is amazing. We didn't know this. So I think JD knows that this is where this is coming from, and it is in an era after COVID and the lies of Fauci and the lies of the FBI and the propaganda of the professors, these young people are not entirely bad people at all. They have fallen for this, and I don't really blame them so much as I blame the Pied Pipers who are leading them to the precipice. So I think JD's challenge is, and my challenge and yours, all of ours, is how do we lead them away from the precipice instead of to the precipice? And I think that's the way we need to look at this, because for JD just to denounce them and denounce the groypers and so on, in some ways is to play into the hands of a Tucker or Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we got, a guy in New York City that's an Islamo-commie that's could very well take over. And then and that's happening all over the country. And they don't seem to be concerned about that. We're concerned about that.
We're concerned about it because Mamdani is the walking embodiment of the Red-Green Alliance, right? My wife calls him a walking Islamic human victory arch, which over New York City, because we know that Islamic armies historically have built these victory arches in places like Istanbul. There's a big one, of course, in Jerusalem called the Dome of the Rock. So yes, if Mamdani wins, as he's likely to, this is going to be a model for all blue cities. We're going to see this pushed. Yeah. And also in red states, we're going to see it pushed in places like Houston.
It's happening here,
Dallas. So this is a real threat. Now, you have to ask yourself, if a guy like Tucker is well-meaning, right? What unites the Red-Green Alliance? They're not the same group. They don't want to live in each other's worlds. They are united by common hatred of the Jews and Israel on the one hand, and the Christians and the principles of America and the West on the other. So doesn't it make common sense for the Jews and the Christians, America and Israel, to come closer together to fight this threat? It's obvious, right? So if anybody's trying to drive a big wedge between Jews and Christians, a big wedge between America and Israel, that can't be coming from a good place. And I don't think it is.
Yeah. And it's like, who is it? Like who? That's the thing. Like people will be like, "You're getting 7,000." You've been getting on your page. You're like every single post you make that has to do with any of this stuff. People are like 7,000, 7,000, and you're like, "Oh my god, I can't." Like,
we would be so rich. Oh
so
my god!
Really, but I mean, the same could be said for the other side, right? Like, is somebody?
It's really important for us to do what we're doing, and I say this because we're coming at it from the Christian angle.
Yes.
All their charges against us don't work. Dinesh, you're so obsessed with Israel. Well, I've had a career of 30 years. I've actually never mentioned Israel for 29 and a half of them.
Right.
I've never written a book. I've never made a movie about Israel. I went to Israel for the first time like 2.5 years ago. So as a result, they are more determined than ever to show that we must have some ulterior motive. And they're flailing trying to show what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it's interesting to see what's happening with the phrase woke right, because now we are being accused of being the woke right when we are no such thing. It's actually the people that we're pushing back against the hardest that we believe are the horseshoe equivalent of the woke left. And that includes the Tuckers of the world who are... It's amazing to me to see that phrase get so misused, and then the whole Christ is King phrase getting so played in a different way. And we asked Grok the other day, like, when did this start becoming such a thing on X? And it was literally right when Candace used it in that way that she did, to be like a dig at Ben Shapiro. And now it's just like everybody is piled on and they're all saying it. And some of the people that have Christ as King in their bios are the most vitriolic, the worst, most vulgar of all of the so-called Christians that are coming after us.
Yeah, the absolute worst.
This is why my film is called The Dragon's Prophecy, because the word dragon refers to the devil. Now, it is just downright devilish, or as we'd say, diabolical, to figure out a ruse in which you can actually use the name of Christ against the Christians to separate them from the Jews, right? Because this, from Lucifer comes Lucifer, whose name means light, and you see a deception right there. The art here is not to have evil be explicit, but to come disguised not only in the name of good, but the greatest good. And what could be a greater good than Christ as King, which under normal circumstances, all three of us would absolutely affirm and echo. So that's what makes the whole thing kind of insidious. I do think the good news is that with Tucker, he is actually going off the deep end, and I think he's going to implode. Not only does he have a passionate defense of Maduro, the narco-terrorist socialist regime of Venezuela, and he's doing this right at a time when Qatar is deploying massive resources to lobby Trump not to do anything to overthrow Maduro. It's like the timing couldn't be more perfect for Tucker. But more lately, in his newsletter, he has a thing now where he says, the Christians are being slaughtered in Nigeria. And I was expecting Tucker to say, and this is terrible and it needs to be stopped. Yeah. But he pivots straight to Israel. He goes, basically, Israel is kind of doing the same thing. And he goes, but yet we won't call it out. Well, has Israel burned hundreds of churches or thousands? Has Israel murdered thousands of Christians? Deliberation as these Islamic radicals? So this is becoming so over the top and so transparent that I think the vast mainstream, already by and large, the mainstream of the Republican Party has, I think we should feel proud of this, that while the left has allowed anti-Semitism to seep into that party really unchecked, it's not going unchecked on the Republican side. And even the Heritage Foundation, which thought it could be sort of a little too clever here by pretending like all of this is not about just canceling Tucker. No, it's not about canceling Tucker. In fact, to my knowledge, no one has even called for a boycott of Tucker's advertising.
Right.
Not a single conservative has called for that. So he has a huge platform. He'll continue to have a huge platform. The only question is, are we endorsing the ideas that are coming out from that platform? Unfortunately, Heritage has sort of put itself into a hole, and instead of getting out, Kevin Roberts appears to be like looking for shovels to dig himself in deeper.
Yeah. What did you make of Tucker's apology? I should use air quotes around that.
Well, this is what I call, so my new phrase for this, and it applies to Candace also, replacement ideology. It's not replacement theology, it's replacement ideology. Here's what I mean. Candace will float some outrageous theory. 8 days later, it's proven to be absolutely preposterous. She never apologizes or backtracks. She replaces it with another one and keeps going in the expectation that people will never figure out that there's no end to this stupidity. Now, with Tucker, he apologizes for calling the Christian Zionists the people he hates the most. And he goes, essentially what he does is he apologizes while replacing his old libel with a new one. Because he goes, what I was really thinking about is all these Christian Zionists who are cheering while Israel is bombing churches and killing all these civilians. Well, we weren't cheering about that. As far as I know, there was one case where there was an accidental bombing of a church. The government of Israel apologizes immediately. So there is no deliberate targeting of Christians or churches or any of that. So again, Tucker, what he's doing is he's pulling back, beating a tactical retreat while advancing on another front and putting out a kind of a new slander or a new libel, hoping that his apology will be remembered, but people won't focus on the next kind of poison pill that he's injecting into the public square.
Yeah, I think you made a great point. We should be positive about the fact that at least there are those of us out here on the right that are fighting this nonsense. We're fighting it. It's just that it's weird to me because it's not a lot of the younger people, which goes back to, again, your whole point of, I just think that some of these kids, I'd say kids because they are kids to us, we're older. We've been doing this a long time. And I think a lot of them, they either don't know, they haven't been taught the right things, or they're easily swayed because they forget. They haven't lived some of the history that we've lived.
Well, notice that even the young people do not defend Tucker on substance, right? I don't see young people saying, well, Tucker's right, Sharia law isn't that bad, because it does bring law and order. True, you might see some people on the street missing an arm or missing a leg, but they're not going to be robbing any stores anytime soon, are they? I mean, you might hear me say that, but you don't hear a lot of young people say that, or they don't come to his defense on Venezuela, or they don't say, Tucker's right. Hamas has been long called a terrorist group. They're not really a terrorist group. They're a political group, kind of like the Labour Party. No one actually defends anything Tucker says, because I think that the way young people look at it is that these things are not really said to be taken substantively. They're a certain type of wink wink to an audience. They're a form of communication in which the substance itself is irrelevant. So again, we sort of jump on it and do a substantive critique of Tucker. But notice that the other thing is Tucker himself never defends any of it. Tucker will never say, I'm going to give you, let's look at World War II. I'm going to give you some really good reasons why we should have allied with Hitler in the first place. He'll never do that. He'll put it out there. He'll scratch his head. Very interesting idea. That's been suppressed for decades. But he'll never actually argue the case. And this is, by the way, why Tucker will never have a truly intelligent interlocutor on his podcast. He's terrified to do that. He'll never have Victor Davis Hanson. He'll never have me, because we will expose him as a fool in 90 seconds. And he can't afford that. He can't afford that to show that to his adoring audience, which, as I say, is looking to him not so much to say anything, but to do the kind of malevolence that he is now become, that is now kind of his MO.
Yeah. Well, and you do get out there. I saw that you are planning to debate Dave Smith on, is it going to be on his show?
It's going to be like one hand clapping. I mean, seriously. Really,
I love it. I love it.
I'm happy to do it because I think a lot of these guys fancy themselves, their idea of being an expert is having listened to 2 podcasts. So they're like, let me tell you what Christianity really means, Dinesh. The New Testament and the Old really don't belong together. The early Christians had it all wrong.
When is this? I can't wait.
I want to watch.
I don't know. It hasn't been set up. I just want to make sure I'm not being set up for an ambush or something. It's a real debate. And of course, the real debate needs to happen, I think, with Tucker, because the other characters are all part of the Tucker sideshow. I mean, nobody wants to really debate Candace, right? I mean, it's...
right.
She wanted us to debate her, and I was like, she tried. You're crazy. Yeah, I don't want it to be anywhere near you in a debate.
And plus, that's not really what we do, but we're just not like, we're not going to hang out and talk to Holocaust deniers. Thank you. Have a good day.
To me, look, again, it's not even so much that. The appeal of Candace, I think, is the appeal of like midget bowling, right? It's sort of like, it's a little bit distasteful, but you can't look away from it, right? There's a midget like going down and hitting the pins, and it's like, what did I just see? So a lot of it is that people are mesmerized by what Candace is doing because of its sheer sort of preposterous audacity. It's undoubtedly entertaining, but entertainment, of course, of this of this bizarre quality is really not the same as political discourse.
Mm-hmm. That is true. But we do know good entertainment, and that includes your new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy. Tell people how they can see it.
Well, it's in streaming and DVD. Go to The Dragons, plural, Prophecy Film. Don't forget the film. TheDragonsProphecyFilm.com. You can stream it on a bunch of platforms. And also buy DVDs, which are pretty good stocking stuffers for Christmas. Now, the film covers all the stuff we've just been talking about. Tucker's in the film. I take Tucker's question to Ted Cruz. I pose it to Netanyahu. So the film, I think, works beautifully because it's timely, and yet it's quite timeless. It steps back and it gives you the larger biblical perspective, not only going back 3,000 years, but projecting forward into at least hints of biblical prophecy. Where's it going?
Awesome.
It's a must-see. We need to do this more often. Dinesh, it's always, always, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Anytime,
Dinesh.
guys.